Boker Tov, Givrin. Hey, that's great. Getting good response from you now. You're learning that Hebrew, and it's going to pay off for you in the days ahead. We want to do several things today. First of all, we want to review the inseparable prepositions. Secondly, we want to go over the vocabularies for the vocab quiz for next Tuesday. And then third, we want to get involved in the chapter on conjunctions and relative pronouns. Just before we do, I've returned to you your exercises. And you'll notice that one of the biggest problems on exercise number 6 for the most of you had to do with C, on attaching the interrogative ma with the appropriate pointing to the following words. And the biggest problem was that there are 7 of them that require the dagesh. And many of you omitted the dagesh. Many of you lost at least 7 points here because you forgot that the dagesh is part of the formation when you have ma with a patak, and the dagesh must go in the first letter of the word that follows the makef if it is not a guttural. And so there are a lot of them there. The very first one, as a matter of fact, began with that because as you look at that, you have shamer. And so it's ma with the makef and then a dagesh in the sheen. So please don't forget that. Most of you did. You've got to remember that the initial primary pointing of the interrogative pronoun here, ma or ma, is that when it's ma with a patak, it's just like the article. The dagesh must be used in the first letter of the word to which it is attached if it is not a guttural. So that is the key point to remember. That's the one that most of you had the biggest problem with. John?
It doesn't specifically ever say that in chapter 6. It just says it basically follows the rules of the article and then it gives examples. So, I mean, I guess I didn't pick up on that because it's just one example of it. You don't really, I just didn't catch it, but they don't even have the document.
It does on page 54. Yes. And you referred back to the rules for the article on pages 52 to 53 with footnote number 83. Follows the same basic rules. But you're right there, John. It could perhaps be made clearer by making certain that that is understood. And 1C in the example has the dagesh but doesn't highlight it or give you that type of instruction. So I take that as something that we probably need to add into there to make a little bit clearer in our revisions. But that is the major point that you had problem with. Most of you had problems with. Scott?
It seems like probably it's because, at least for me, I spent so much time focusing on the exceptions to the article, and the gutturals and the different conditions, unaccented and so forth, but sort of blew right by that.
Okay, good. So we've got that down here. That helps me to understand why there was some confusion there. I found a number of you did excellently through there and had everything correct, but about half of you really struggled in that one section, section C. Jeff?
On page 53, 2A, should that also have a or just the 1C?
No, that's interrogative pay.
So it's just the 1C? Or the 2B, I mean?
Where are you at? On which page?
2B on 54.
Yes, 2B on page 54, correct. Has to do with ma. And it's 1C under that 2B on page 54. Okay. Any other questions? All right, good. Let's review then the inseparable prepositions. We went over this last week, but I want to go over it again, and then we'll be looking at the exercise for the prepositions. And by the way, another thing, you look at the textbook, but we also covered this in class in advance of your doing your exercises, just like we covered the prepositions last week. and the exercise for prepositions are due today. So don't just read the textbook, also pay attention to what's said in class, because I emphasized the doggish being in that. We had more than one example that we looked at on the screen here. So please keep those in mind and make certain that you pay attention to them. The same here on the prepositions. We went over these last week, and we're going to go over them again second time this morning, and you should have already read this actually last week as well. And then your exercise 7 is what's due today. Okay, first of all, dealing with the rule number 1, normally the inseparable prepositions are attached by a schwa. They're pointed with a schwa. So when we have the preposition lamed attached to the noun boker, then it's attached directly, and it has a schwa under it. That's the normal pointing, is a schwa under it. And so if we have Adam, we want to add the lamed there the same way. Nahar, the word for river, if we want to add the beit preposition, the same way. Afar, dust, if we want to say in dust, just add the beit preposition with a schwa. Ish, kaish, like a man. Lot, like Lot, the name of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. So notice that the normal use of the inseparable prepositions, kaf, lamed, and beit, those three. Lamed's the most frequent one, beit is the second most frequent, and the kaf is the least frequent. Just a schwa, simple schwa. No other things going on with it. No other things take place. The words that they're attached to remain the same. And then rule number 2, when you have words beginning with a simple schwa, like meragel. Meragel is the word for spy. If we want to add a lamed preposition to it, we can't have two schwas together at the beginning of the word. So the first schwa changes to a hirik. If we add the beit preposition, the same thing occurs. If we add the kaf preposition, the same thing occurs. So all three prepositions follow exactly the same rules. There's no differences between the two prepositions. James, or the three prepositions?
If you have a word that has an article on the front,
We'll come to that.
okay.
Okay? Right now we're dealing with those words that have no article. Okay? Yehoshua, the name Joshua, you take the hirik, and because the yod is the first letter of the name, the yod then becomes part of the vowel, and the schwa that is under it disappears. That's where we have the exception to this rule. Rather than leaving the schwa under the first letter of the word, if the first letter of the word is a yod, the schwa disappears under the yod, and the hirik remains under the preposition. So we have lihoshua. And then rule number 3, words beginning with composite schwa take inseparable prepositions by taking the same vowel that is in the composite schwa and making it the vowel of the preceding letter, the preposition. It's the short form of that vowel. It's not the vocal schwa. You take the schwa off, so here you have la asot. You use the pathic. It's hatif pathic, you use the pathic. If it's a hatif segol, you use the segol. And if it is a hatif comets, you use the comets underneath. So the corresponding short vowel. And as we explained here, this comets on this last one here is actually a short vowel because it's coming off of the hatif comets, which is really built on the comets hatuf. All right? Elohim is an exception. On Elohim, when this occurs, we change it, we drop the hatif segol and heighten what would have been the segol under the lamed to a tseri. It becomes a tseri leilohim. Leilohim. This is one exception. Notice this is not what we did with Edom. This does not occur with all olives with hatif segol. It only occurs with Elohim. Okay? It is the exception. It is not the rule. Edom follows the rule. Elohim is the exception. Rule number 4, the inseparable preposition usurps the position and pointing of the article. This is where you get to James's question. What do you do if the word has an article on it? You take the hey off, but leave everything else that was there and put the preposition in place of the hey. So Melech, a king, is Hammelech with the article. How do you attach a preposition to it? You remove the hey and replace that hey with the preposition. Therefore, the pathek remains and the doubling dogish remains. So the other indications that we have the article are still there. It's just that the hey has disappeared. Okay? Another example, Adam, because Adam has the article ha Adam. Aleph rejects the doubling dogish. So what do you do here? You just remove the hey and replace it with the preposition, whether it's kaf or beit or lamed. And it's ka Adam, ba Adam, la Adam. And because of the commas underneath the preposition, we know then that the article is there, that this is according to the man or like the man. Okay? Because it does not have the simple schwa under the preposition. Eric?
I believe you've mentioned this before, but could you repeat when we have the word ha-adam, just with the definite article, why it takes that accent again?
That we don't know why it takes the accent. We weren't there when this language was created. All we know is that in the Hebrew, a secondary accent is utilized on ha-adam. And we can guess the reason, and the guessed reason that is given by most grammarians is that it's because you've got 3 commas in a row. And because of the 3 commas, these are 3 long vowels, then it requires a secondary accent. And so the metheg is added to it.
For the word itself, we just need to memorize it.
You just need to memorize it. That's right. Okay? All the commas are long. All commas are long. There's no commas that's ever short, unless it's a kamatz hatuf. But these are not, there's no kamatz hatuf here.
Oh, I thought when you mentioned earlier those were comments on too.
No. No. Okay. No. What you're talking about is that previous example where we had ka'aniya. And that's only one situation. That's because it's preceding a hatif kamatz that we know that. But that's not true of all forms. That's only when you have the hatif kamatz. Okay, let me go back and explain that, because what Jeff is talking about is a good point to bring out. Remember, right here, we're talking about this, and the comets, the hatif comets is built, remember, on the O-class vowels. And this is a short comets, which means it's comets hatuf. And this is onia, if you were going to pronounce it fully. And so, therefore, if this is the corresponding short vowel, then this is actually a comets hatuf. It's unusual because it occurs in an open, unaccented syllable. But it's required to be that because of this. That is the only such situation you have of that. You never have that with the others, like ka-adam. That doesn't make that then a kamatz hatuf. Because kamatz hatuf will still remain, except in that one, actually there's very few, about 3 exceptions in the entire Hebrew Old Testament. So there are very few. That was one of them. But on Adam, this is not a kamatz hatuf. And in order to make certain we don't take that, notice the metheg. The metheg is never going to be put next to a kamatz hatuf, because that's accented, clearly accented. Where ka'oniyah, it's not accented, it's unaccented, because the accent is still at the end of the word. But here, it's clearly accented. Okay? All right. Afar. He'afar for the dust, and if we want to say in the dust, it's be'afar. And notice we know it's in the dust because it doesn't have a schwa under the beith. Remember that regardless of the first letter, unless you have a schwa under that first letter that changes the schwa to a hirik, or if you have a compound schwa that changes that schwa under the preposition to the corresponding short vowel, or if you have some exception like li hoshua, or if you have an exception like leilohim, almost every single time you have a preposition that's attached to a noun, it's going to be with a simple schwa under it. So on every one of these, we could see that the article is there, because if the article weren't there, you'd have la melech. It'd be a schwa. You'd have ka adam, like a man. You have b afar, in the dust, in dust, instead of in the dust. The segol under there tells you that's the article. Okay? So it's the vowel. You have to pay attention to the vowel that's under that preposition. That's your clue. Okay, rule number 5. Inseparable prepositions immediately before the accented syllable of a word in pause. Remember, in pause means they have a major accent. Normally, the athnak as the major central logical accent of a verse, or the seluk as the final closing accent of a verse. But when they're in pause, then the preposition takes the comments. Lamayim, you can see here the sof pasuk at the end tells you it's at the end of the verse. It's the last word of the verse. So that vertical line next to the comments under the meme is a seluk. It's not a metheg. And so that means this word is in pause because it has a major disjunctive accent associated with it. Therefore, the lamed on it with the comments on it is not indicating that this is to the water. It's to water or for water. All right? Also, there's another clue. If this were the article, the comments under the lamed is the wrong pointing for the article. Because if you add the article to mayim, what does the article look like on mayim? It has a pathak, and you have a dogish in the meme. So on mayim, if you're going to look at it, and it's always accented here, but it's going to have a pathak here, and it's going to have a doubling dogish there. You don't see a pathak here, you don't see a doubling dogish there. So that's not the article. That's not the article. We know then it's just because it's in pause. Just because it's in pause. Shevet. Notice the athnak under shevet. And the lamed preposition on it. Again, if that were going to be the definite article, it'd be la shevet. Okay, and that's, yeah, the tau. And to make certain which word I used. Okay, so you have the dogish here, and the pathic would be the definite article. But here, it's in pause, and you got the first clue is your athnak. Your athnak is present. So when you have an athnak, or you have the saluk and sof pasuk present with a word, and you have a preposition, the inseparable preposition, the beith preposition, the kaf preposition, the lamed preposition attached, comments will be under that because the word is in pause. Scott?
The saluk always has the 2 diamonds with it.
Yes, the saluk will always have the 2 diamonds also following it. They work together. They come together. There are a couple of places in the Hebrew Bible where the sof pasuk is missing, perhaps because of scribal error. But you'll normally see it there, 99.99% of the time. All right? Now, let's talk about the preposition min, because it has some differences in the way that it's handled, and it's partly because of that noon that is there connected with it. Rule number 1, before non-gutturals, the noon is assimilated and a compensating dogish forte is used. So if we have melech, king, and we have then from a king is mimmelech. Notice the hirik is retained, the noon disappears, but a doubling dogish appears. Now, how do we know this is not the article under this? Number 1, if it were an article, you'd have a pathak under the main. Number 2, when an article occurs on a noun to which we attach min, normally then the form that is taken is to attach the min by means of, in fact, let's use hamayim, the example we had up here, okay? And let's take this idea of water. If we're going to say from the water, then what happens is the min is attached by means of a makef this way. It is not joined to it. Okay, it is not joined to it. It's normally used in this fashion when there's an article. So with min, you're not looking for articles. With min, you're just looking for what happened to the noon when you attach it. If the article is going to be there, it's used this way. If the article is not there, if we're going to have from water, okay, what do we find under it? And actually, I should have taken this doggish out. Okay. What are we going to find here? What will be the vowel under the meme? A heroic and a doggish for the noon's assimilation, to compensate for that assimilation. And all it is that in the Hebrew ear, in what they want to hear and what's going on, they don't like hearing the noon in there the way it is. They don't like that noon sound. So they don't have min melech. All right? To them, that doesn't sound good. So instead, they compensate it and becomes mimelech and mimayim here when we're dealing with the from water, or mimelech from a king. Okay? So if we have nahar from a river, min nahar. Notice the doggish again. Okay? We emphasized this doggish last time, and we emphasized again here today. And it's also talked about in your book. Miyom from a day. Rule number 2, before gutturals, we're going to have a change. Why? Gutturals refuse the doubling doggish. And so to compensate for that, then the heroic is heightened to its seri. The heroic is heightened to its seri. So on Adam, from a man, or from Adam, it becomes me Adam, because the aleph rejects the doubling doggish that would compensate for the noon being assimilated, and so an alternative compensation is arranged. The vowel is heightened. Regel becomes me regel, from a foot. Hadar, from splendor, me hadar. Rule number 3, before the article, noon is either assimilated and heroic heightened at seri for rejection of compensatory doggish forte, haaretz, me haaretz, notice stays. The article stays. And the alternative form is to do it this way. To change here and to have haaretz this way. Okay? Your article stays. You don't change the article. Why does the heroic heighten to its seri in the situation of me ha-aretz? Anyone? Why do we have the heightened seri? Scott? The hay is a guttural. You can't put the compensatory doggish in there. So you're going to have to heighten the seri. So you have me haaretz, you'll have me hayom or min hayom, or joined by a makef, min hayom, etc. Okay? Those are the two ways that it's formed. The article does not disappear. The article does not disappear. All right? Let's take the exercise number 7 out then. Okay, let's go through examples there at the top. These are examples also taken from the textbook. If we add the lamed preposition to shame, what does it look like? Add the preposition lamed to shame. What does it look like? A simple schwa. So the example is here, like that. L'shame. Okay? All right? The second example there, zot. What does the lamed preposition look like on zot? It's another simple schwa. And the third one, on barak. What does it look like on barak? Another simple schwa. Okay? All right. Let's start with number 1. What is the vowel under the lamed that you attach to number 1? Chad?
Heroic?
It's a heroic. Why?
I don't remember the rule, I'm sorry.
Can't have 2 schwas at the beginning of a word. Can't have 2 schwas at the beginning of a word. Everyone repeat after me. Can't have 2 schwas at the beginning of a word. Okay, where can you have 2 schwas? In the middle of the word, and in the middle of the word, the first is silent, the second is vocal. If they're at the end of the word, they're both silent. Okay, but you can't have them at the beginning of the word. All right, Number 2, Scott Jackson, what is the vowel under the lamed that you attach there? Simple schwa. Number 3, Scott Basolo, what is the vowel under the lamed you attach to oyev?
Simple schwa.
Simple schwa. Number 4, James Wood, what's the vowel under the lamed?
Simple schwa.
Okay, Dennis, what's the vowel under the lamed on number 5?
Simple schwa.
Number 6, George, what's the vowel under the lamed?
Simple schwa.
Right. Number 7, Jan, what's the vowel under the lamed on kokav?
Simple schwa.
All right. And number 8, Roger, what's the vowel under the lamed on number 8? Segol. Segol, because you have a hatif segol corresponding short vowel. Hatif segol corresponding short vowel be the segol. So it'll be a lamed with segol. Okay? The segol. Okay, number 9. Franz?
It's a simple schwa.
Simple schwa would be under the lamed that you attach to it. Okay? And number 10, Mike, what's the under the lamed?
Simple schwa.
Simple schwa. Number 11, Kempis, what's under the lamed? No. Do we have a hatif pathak under the chayth? No. So it's going to be simple schwa. Simple schwa. Okay, number 12. Kyle, what's under the lamed on number 12?
Simple schwa.
Simple schwa. Tom, what's under the lamed of number 13?
Simple schwa.
And number 14, Scott Jackson, what's the lamed got under it?
Simple schwa.
And the last one, Greg, what's the lamed have under it? Simple schwa. So notice most of them are simple schwas. The exceptions are number 1, where it becomes a hirik because you can't have 2 schwas in the row at the beginning of the word. And number 8, because you have a compound schwa. Again, you can't have 2 schwas at the beginning of the word, even if they're compound. So it changes to the corresponding short vowel, the segol. So there's only 2 exceptions, number 1 and number 8. All the rest are simple schwa. Scott?
I had to reread every roll every time I saw a guttural on this one. I just couldn't believe that I didn't have the
Right. That shows you're learning about the article and the interrogative pronoun real well. Yes. You have to switch gears here, don't you? Okay. Good. All right. On B, attach both the inseparable preposition lamed and the definite article to the following words. And let's do the examples together here. The first word is sheen. Now, how do we attach the article to sheen? Kenny, what's the article look like on this word? Okay, it's a hey with a pathak and a dogish. Okay? Now, Kenny, what do we do then to add the lamed preposition to it? The hey disappears, and we replace it with the lamed. So that's the first example. The second example is regel. All right? How do we attach an article to it? Mike, what does the article look like on regel? A hey with the comments. So then, Mike, what do we do to put the lamed preposition on it?
Take the hay out.
Take the hey off and put the lamed in. All right, and the third example is Barak. And Eric, what's the article look like on Barak? All right. So then when we put the lamed preposition, what do we do?
Replace the hay with a lamed.
That's right. Okay. Now remember, this beith is not a guttural. So if you were tempted to switch to a segol, that's not what happens here. This is not the same as a situation like you have with afar. With afar, the article is what, Roger?
Patak.
Not with the patak. Scott Basolo.
Segol.
Segol. Afar. So if we add then here, the lamed here. Now you may have been tempted to do that here because you saw these commas here. But this is not a guttural. Okay? So it remains a pathek. All right, let's go through then and take a look at these. Number one, what is the pointing for the preposition lamed? John Milcon. Okay, a comments, la adam. And if you're on the ball, you put the vertical metheg to the left of that comments. All right? I will not count off if you didn't put it there. Okay? Number two, what is the pointing and adding the lamed, Jeff? A pathak, and what else? The doubling dogish has to be put in the lamed on lave. So it's a lamed with a pathak, a lamed with a dogish forte and a tsere and the bait. Okay, so don't forget the dogish in that first letter of the noun lave. It's hal lave. Okay? And number three, Gus?
The lamed with a pathak and a dagish.
Lamed with a pathak and a dogish in the kof. Okay? Number four, John Strickland.
Lamed with a pathak and a dagish.
Okay, lamed with a pathak and the dogish. The dogish is already there, so you just leave it alone. Okay, ear, Kenny. Lamed and a pathak? Would it be a pathak with ayin? Not a segol. A comments. Comments, okay? So before the ayin, it would have to be a comments. The doubling dogish is rejected, so the pathak is heightened to a comments. So it's lamed, comments, and ear. Okay, number six, Roger. Okay, lamed with a pathak and doubling dogish in the kof. Doubling dogish in the kof. Okay, on boker, Greg.
Lamed with the pathak.
Lamed with the pathak, and the doubling dogish is already there in the base. So you don't have to add it in that one. Okay, Kempis, number 8.
Lamed with a pathak.
Okay,
And the doubling dogish is already there.
and the doubling dogish is already there. Okay, and Franz, number 9.
It's a lamed with a pathak and double dagish.
Okay, and number 10, Kyle.
Lamed with a pathak.
Correct. And notice there's no doubling dogish because this is the strong guttural. The hey and the cheth are doubled by implication rather than by writing it. So there's no doubling dogish in the hey, but there'll be a pathak under the lamed. Okay, it's la hekal. All right. Number 11, Gibor. Let's see here. Who haven't I called on? Let's start again up here at the front. Then James Wood.
Lamed with a pathak.
Okay, lamed with a pathak, and the doubling dogish is already in the gimel. Okay, number 12, Dennis.
Lamed with a pathak and double dagish.
Okay, lamed with a pathak under it, and then the first lamed of the word following it will have a doubling dogish in it. La layla. Okay. Number 13, Roger. Okay, lamed with the comments. La olam. And number 14, Scott Basolo.
Lamed with comments.
Lamed with the comments. And explain.
The resh being acting like a guttural takes the pathak before it and refuses to double it.
Good. And so you heighten the pathak to a comments. And so it becomes ha rakosh, and therefore if you replace that, then it becomes la rakosh. Note here, you may have been tempted when you saw the schwa under rakosh to say, if I'm adding the lamed, I've got to change the schwa to a hirik. But that's when there isn't an article. Okay? First put the article on it. Okay? Then all I have to do is erase the hay. So it should be a lamed with the comments. All right, number 15, Jan.
Lamed with the comments.
Okay, a lamed with a comets. Okay, ha'okla. All right, and George, number 16.
A lamed with a pathak and a dogish.
Yeah, dogish forte in the main. Okay, lamed with pathak and dogish forte in the main. Yes.
The one previous?
Yes.
Is there no method because it's not Adam?
It's not she ate, it's food. This is a comet satuf. Okay. All right. Number 17, Mike.
Comments underneath the line.
Okay, comets underneath the lamed. La or. It's ha or the light, it's la or to the light. Okay, number 18, Tom.
A lamed with a pathak and then a doubling dogish under the yod.
Okay, in the yod, the doubling dogish. Okay. And then number 19, Kyle.
Lamed with a comet.
Okay, lamed with a comet. Remember, you have to put the article on first. Otherwise, you're tempted to put a segol under it. But you have to put the article on first. So you put the article on before the guttural. It's going to be ha because the guttural rejects the doubling dogish. So the pathic is heightened to a comets. And then just replace the hay with the lamed. All right. Number 20, Baruch. Chad?
Lamed with a pathak.
Okay. Okay, and the dogish is already there, yes. Number 21, Franz?
It's a lamed with a pathak.
Okay, lamed with the pathak, and the doubling dogish is already there in the kaf. And number 22, Kempis?
Lamed with the comments.
Lamed with the comets. Again, you may have been tempted to remember the rule that Elohim becomes Leilohim, but remember that's without the article. So you first add the article, and it's a ha Elohim, and so it's la Elohim to the God. Okay? Number 23, Greg. Yes, question.
Does that have the,
Method? No. Okay. Greg, number 23.
Lamed with the comments.
Okay, lamed with the comments. Okay, because you add the article first. It's ha-edama. Lamed with the comments. Number 24, Kenny.
Lamed with a pathak and a dogish.
Good. Lamed with a pathak and then a dogish forte in the sheen. Okay, number 25, Gus.
Lamed with a pathak and a dogish.
Okay, lamed with pathak and the dogish in the kof. Number 26, John.
Lamed with a pathak and a dogish.
Okay, and a dogish in that first sonic. Lasus. Okay, number 27, Jeff.
Pathak and dogish forte.
Pathak under the lamed and dogish forte in the sheen. Scott Jackson, number 28, Gan.
Pathak and the doubling's done.
Okay, pathak and the doubling's done. Nice way to say it there. Okay, David, number 29.
It's a lamed with a pathak and a double dogish.
Correct. Lamed with a pathak and a doubling dogish in the dalath, which is already there. Okay, and number 30, Eric.
Lamed with a comments.
Lamed with the comets. All right, let's go to C. Attach the preposition min inseparably. So here you're not given the option of attaching it by means of makef. That's the reason that's highlighted and italicized and bold, to keep you from taking the easy way out, all right? Especially when the article's here. Okay, so we attach them inseparably as we go across, and we can look at the different examples we have here. Let's take the 3 examples, and let's fill them out here. If we take Barak, James Wood, what will it look like? Why would there be a tseri? Is the baith a guttural? So the baith isn't going to reject the doubling dogish. So it's a hirik, and the doubling dogish is already there. All right? And Scott Basolo with Zot, what will the name have with it?
It will have Uric underneath it and doubling dogish at the
In the Zayin.
yeah.
Okay, Mizot. And then when we get to Av, Greg, what will we put here? Just reason it through. If we attach the min and the noon assimilates, right, goes to Atsere because the aleph rejects the doubling dagish, so the hirik has to be heightened to compensate for it. So there still has to be compensation. The noon disappearing has to be compensated for. It's compensated for by a doubling dagish here, a doubling dagish here, but because the doubling dagish is rejected by the guttural, the compensation reverts to the vowel. And so the vowel is heightened. Okay? All right? So on number 1, and let's begin at the back this time. Kelly, on number 1, what does the meme have under it?
A hirik.
It has a hirik, and the gimel retains the dagish. Okay? John Milcon, what was number 2 look like? It has a sere, meme with the tsere under it. Okay, because the hay rejects the doubling dagish to compensate for the noon. All right, James Lee, what does number 3 look like with a meme prefix to it?
It has a hirik and then a dagish.
A hirik and then a dagish and the meme on mashal. Okay, and Eric, number 4? A tsere, because the resh rejects doubling, so it's a meme with a tsere under it. And number 5, David? Meme with a tsere, because the aleph rejects doubling. Number 6, Scott? Tsere, meme with a tsere, because the hay rejects doubling. Jeff, number 7? Tsere, because the ayin rejects doubling. Number 8, John Strickland? Tsere, because the hay rejects doubling. Okay, number 9, Gus?
The hirik with the dagish.
Okay, the hirik under the meme and a doubling dagish in the noon. Okay, and number 10, Kenny? A tsere, because the aleph rejects doubling. Greg, number 11? Tsere, because the resh rejects doubling. Number 12, Kempis?
Hirik with a doubling dagish in the noon.
Correct. Hirik with a doubling dagish in the noon. Number 13, Franz? A tsere, because the hay rejects doubling. And then Chad, number 14?
Also a tsere.
Tsere, because the aleph rejects doubling. Kyle, number 15?
Mem with the tsere.
Tsere, because the hay rejects doubling. Notice how often I said because it rejects doubling? The rules of the guttural. And we're going to find this over and over and over again. That's why I emphasize those 3 rules of the gutturals. They're going to haunt you all the way through your study of Hebrew because they're one of the most consistent of all rules. All right, on D, the following words have a preposition prefix to them. Indicate whether they have the article or do not have the article. When we say they have the article, we call them articular. Okay, they're articular. The noun is articular because it has the article. If it's anarthrous, it means without the article. There is no article, anarthrous. Okay, so like, for example, kidavar in the example, is that articular or anarthrous? Anarthrous. Has a simple schwa under the kaf, so it's anarthrous, okay? What about bahekal, Scott Basolo?
It's articular.
It's articular, because you don't have the schwa under the beth. That's your first clue. If it doesn't have a schwa under it, you see, it's going to turn out then to be something else, unless you have those exceptions like Elohim and then the initial schwa. All right, so let's go through these. Number 1 on this one, Kenny, what is this, articular or anarthrous? It's anarthrous, because the rule is the schwa under the beth preposition changes to the corresponding short vowel, because 2 schwas, whether they're compound or simple, cannot stand together at the beginning of a word. So there is no article here. Okay? If it was the article, it'd be a comets under it. Number 2, George?
Articular?
It's articular. You have a comets under the kaf. Ka Adam represents ka and then ha Adam. All right? Number 3, Dennis? What would be the article that would be on chatat? If we put the article on chatat, what would the article look like? Would it be a comets? This is a strong guttural. James? Would? Okay, it'd be a pathek. If you had the article, it would be a pathek. Okay, because you have a strong guttural, it's doubled by implication, the cheth. So if you have a tseri under the meme, all that's happened is compensation for the rejection of the doubling dogish for the noon being assimilated. So this is anarthrous. It's anarthrous. No article has a pointing of a tseri. Do you remember seeing any article with a tseri under it? We went through the articles. And when you attach it to nouns? So if you have a tseri or a hirik, it's going to be anarthrous. Okay, number 4, Kempis.
This is anarthrous?
Okay, it's anarthrous because it takes the corresponding short vowel. If esot had an article, it would be a comets under it, right? Because it's a ayin is a guttural. So it's just following the rules of the inseparable preposition, where you can't have 2 schwas in the row at the beginning of the word, whether they're simple or whether they're compound. And so it takes corresponding short vowel. Okay, so that's anarthrous. Number 5 is what, Tom?
Articular.
Articular. Okay, articular, the comets under the lamed. All right, E, circle the one inseparable preposition which is pointed incorrectly in each set and explain why. All right, let's take the example and deal with it first. Which one here should be circled and why? Jeff?
The first one should have a pathback under it.
Should have, it does have a pathback under it.
Has a hayek under it?
Are you talking about the example? Or
The example, the example.
Sorry, I was looking at
Oh, okay, yeah, the example.
well, that would be, because it should have a commas under it.
Right. La-ish is the one that's wrong because the pathak should be a comets. Should be a comets if you have the article there, okay? Because the aleph rejects the doubling dogish, therefore the pathak has to be heightened. So it'd be la-ish, okay? And then number 1, David, which is the wrong one?
The one furthest to the left.
Okay, the left-hand one, li-dama, and why?
Because the word begins with a compound schwa, the preposition should take the corresponding short vowel.
Correct. It should take the corresponding short vowel. It should have been a pathak under the lamed. Okay, and number 2, Franz?
That'll be the middle one. That's wrong.
Okay, and why?
The yod with a simple schwa, the schwa becomes silent and drops out.
Okay, good. Before a yod, then that schwa disappears. The schwa under the yod disappears. So it'd be lihuda. All right? Number 3, Dennis.
The middle one?
Okay, the middle one, why? Correct. It's the exception. It's one of those exceptions. Okay? It's the exception to the normal rule. The middle one on number 3 at the bottom of the page, number 3, it should be Be-Elohim, and because that's the exception. Elohim is the exception. Instead of the corresponding short vowel, Elohim drops that compound schwa, and the segol is heightened to a tseri. Okay? Number 4 at the top of page 27, John Milcon.
I think that's me'im, me'is, ish.
Yeah, me'ish.
First one.
All right, the first one there on the left. Okay, and what's the reason?
Well, since it's a guttural, that first lyric should become a tsari.
Right, because you have a guttural on ish, rejecting the doubling dogish, then you heighten the hirik under the meme to compensate to a tseri. All right, number 5, James Lee.
The middle one, there should be a doubling dogish.
Correct. The middle one is an error because the doubling dogish is missing in the noon. All right, translate the following words and phrases to English. Let's go through these and let's all pronounce them together, okay? La'ish.
La'ish.
Means what, Scott Jackson?
To the man.
To the man or for the man? Question, Kelly?
I did. On number 5,
Yes.
I was curious about the lengthening the pathak to a comment before a tone syllable. And I had circled the first one because I thought that since there was an accent on there, that became a tone syllable.
Tone syllables have nothing to do with what happens here. It's whether the guttural is there rejecting the doubling dogish is all it has to do with. Okay? All right? But I'm glad to see that you're thinking about such things. It only happens that in these situations the tone syllable doesn't have anything to do with it. All right. The next word is ish. Everyone? Ish. What does it mean, Kempis? The example?
Oh, for the man. Oh, man.
A man. Man or a man. Either one. Okay? Now let's go to number 1. Number 1. Let's pronounce it. Le Adam.
Le Adam.
What does it mean, Scott Basolo?
For a man.
For a man or to a man, or for Adam or to Adam. Okay? Let's pronounce the word to its left. La Adam.
La Adam.
What does it mean, Franz?
For the man.
For the man or to the man. Okay? Number 2. Migoi.
Migoi.
Let's pronounce it again. Migoi.
Migoi.
And what does it mean, Greg?
From a nation.
From a nation. Okay? Pronouncing the word to the left. Mehagoi.
Mehagoi.
What does it mean, James Wood?
From the nation.
From the nation. All right? Number 3. Kayom.
Kayom.
What does it mean, Jeff?
Like a day.
Like a day or like day or as a day or as day. All of those are acceptable. Okay? Let's pronounce the word to the left of it. Kayom.
Kayom.
What does it mean, John Strickland?
As a day.
As the day. As the day or like the day. Okay? Yes, Scott?
Like 2 days?
No. There's no to there. Oh, okay. You're thinking hayom is today, could mean today? Okay, that's fine. As long as I was thinking there were 2 prepositions there. Yeah, today is one word. Yes, like today. Yes, that will do it. That's fine. Everyone understand that? Hayom can mean not only the day, but today. This way, one word. Helps if I can spell it right in English. Okay. All right. And number 4 then, let's pronounce it, mibayet. And Gus, what does that mean? From a house. All right. And pronounce the word to the left of it, mehabayet. What does it mean, Jan? From the house. Number 5, ka'av. And what does that mean, Eric? Okay, like father, like a father, as father, like father, just as long as you don't have an article in there, okay? As long as it isn't the father. All right, the word to the left of it is ka'av. And ka'av means what, Scott Basolo?
Like the father.
Like the father or as the father. Okay, number 6 is pronounced acher ach. Everyone?
Acher ach.
And what does that mean, Kempis?
Behind a brother?
Behind a brother, after a brother. Okay? If you have after brother or behind brother, I'll accept it. All right? Just as long as you don't have the in there. Okay? And then the word to the left is acharbayit. Tom, what does that mean?
Behind a house?
Behind a house. After a house. All right? And number 7 is El Elohim.
Elohim.
And what does that mean, Kenny? Unto God. Unto God or to God or toward God. Unto God, to God, or toward God. Okay? And the next one is Leilohim.
Leilohim.
And what does that one mean, Kyle?
It means for God.
For God or to God? Okay. Number 8, Bein Ha'ish.
Bein Ha'ish.
And what does that mean, Chad?
It means without life, or between life, actually.
We're not at Beli Hai. We're at number 8 to the right there. Bein Ha'ish.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's between the man.
Okay, between the man. Now that sounds weird, doesn't it? I don't think that'll occur very often. But you do have the problem, for example, we have it in Genesis 3:15. I will set enmity between you and the woman. And the way it's said there, it's between you and between the woman. Bein ha'isha is what's there in Genesis 3:15. And it's because the Hebrew repeats the between. In English, we don't. And so that's why you'd have something like this occurring. Is if it was, I would set enmity between the man and the, between God and the man, you see, then the man would be Bein ha'ish here. Be this way. All right, then we'll get to what Chad was trying to translate for us. Beli Hai. Let's do that again. Beli Hai.
Beli Hai.
Are you getting the guttural in there? It doesn't sound like it. The Hai. Get the guttural down there. Get deep down, you know. Let's do it again. Beli Hai.
Beli Hai.
Yes, I saw the spit flying. All right, so we got it. Okay, what does this one mean, Mike? Without life. Without life. Does anyone have anything different than without life there? Okay. Number 9 is Eighth Hadabar. And what does this mean? Let's see, who haven't I called on? Yeah, John Melcon.
With the word.
With the word. Or with the thing. Any other translations there? Okay, and let's take the next one to the left. Im ha'adam. And what does this one mean, George?
Without the man.
Not
with the man, sorry.
with, right, with. Im is with. Scott?
Is there a reason we use a different with as one because it's a person, the other it's an object, or
No.
it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. They're used fairly interchangeably. They're co-equal in meaning. It's more frequent that we'd see im used. Okay? All right, number 10. Ka'adam lifnei Elohim. Everyone? Ka'adam lifnei Elohim. And what does this translate as, Greg?
As the man before God.
Okay, as the man before God, or like the man before God, or like the man in the presence of God, or like the man in front of God. Any other translations?
According to the man in the presence of God.
That's all right. And not in the, well, yeah, I'll accept it. Go ahead. Any others?
Use Adam.
No, you cannot use Adam because there's an article under the kaf. It's the man, not Adam. Okay? All right, number 11. Ra'ah ha'adam ha'kohen. Ra'ah ha'adam ha'kohen. What's the translation, Tom?
The man saw the priest?
The man saw the priest. Okay, any others? I will allow that this time because you haven't learned the rules, but normally, normal word order is it's verb, subject, object. So you always assume that the noun immediately following the verb is going to be the subject, but I'll allow that this time because we haven't covered that yet. Jeff? He saw the man, the priest. That's a very overly literal translation, not very smooth. It got all the words correct, but didn't make much sense. Take half off. Okay? Yes?
I mean, I'm a little confused, you know, at this level, I thought we were supposed to be very liberal. When we translate, I mean, I feel incapable right now of making an interpretation of these words. I was just thinking that we were putting the words out. Are we
Okay.
supposed to...
Yeah, these are sentences. These are sentences. You should assume that they're sentences. I'll take that in consideration. Don't put a mark on it there. Okay? All right? All right. Try to, as we're going along on these, try to make sense of them because that's the only way you're going to learn a language is make sense of it. Okay?
A little bit, I mean, how, because, you know, I've done a little reading, not very much in my Bible now, and obviously, in like your examples of the chapters are very mixed up and confusing of how we would do it. I mean, maybe sometimes you could give us a little help on how to rearrange that without putting our own, you know, thought into it sometimes, because some of them aren't as clear as
Okay.
others.
Just keep in mind that the normal word order in Hebrew is verb, subject, object.
Okay.
And that's not English word order. We do not speak that way. Speak, we do not that way, doesn't make any sense, you see?
So we need to move it.
You have to move it.
We do subject, verb, object.
Right? Okay? It's that simple, that basic, that's all I want you to work with right now. Okay? All right? Number 12, let's pronounce it. Amer haben me'asa.
Amer haben me'asa.
All right, let's try that again. Amer haben me'asa. All right, and how does that translate out there? Let's take Kyle.
The son said, he made what?
Okay, there's a number of different ways you can translate this one. The son said, what did he do? Remember, me'asa can be what did he do? What had he done? What did he make? What had he made? How did he do? How did he make? There's a number of possibilities here. Remember, the me is a relative. It's an interrogative pronoun. Okay? And we've gone over the examples of me'asa in class. All right? Number 13. Let's pronounce it. Mi natan mayim la adam. Everyone? Mi natan mayim la adam. And how would that translate out, Dennis? Me means what? Who? Who gave water to the man? Okay? Who gave water to the man? Okay, number 14. Let's do it. Hediber hamelech la'am min ha'hekal. Everyone? Hediber hamelech la'am min ha'hekal. All right, how would that translate out, Greg?
He spoke to the people from the temple.
Okay, notice you have an interrogative particle on deber. The he with the hatef patek under it, that's interrogative. So it says it's a question. So how would we word a question? Did the king speak to the people from the palace or from the temple? Okay? Did the king speak? Okay? If you did it overly literally, you'd have to have did he speak? Will he speak? Is he speaking? Has he spoken? Had he spoke? You must have something there that shows it a question. Okay? For had diber. All right? Number 15. Sim Elohim hahar ba'aretz. Sim Elohim hahar ba'aretz. Okay, and how do you translate this? Roger.
God placed the mountain in the earth.
Okay, but there's other ways to translate this too. What are some of the others we have? Did anyone have to place? Okay. You could have to place what? God, the mountain in the land. Okay, there's a number of ways. This is one of those problem ones that to translate it may be somewhat difficult, and here you better just do it as literally as you can for the time being.
So we shouldn't have changed that to the passive placed, God placed.
That's not passive.
Or not passive, but God placed.
No, that's fine to do that.
Okay.
No problem at all. Okay? In fact, that's the way it comes out
But
eventually.
it's desirable as opposed to leaving it as an infinitive to place.
It's more desirable to say he placed. So to say God placed. That's more desirable. But remember that all you know at this point is seem is a normally an infinitive because I've taught you to translate as to place. So we're not looking here to make certain that this comes out something different. Okay? Everyone? All right? So there's a lot of flexibility there on that one. Number 16. Natan Elohim ha'aretz la'am. Natan Elohim ha'aretz la'am. And Franz, how does this come out?
God gives the earth to the people.
Okay, God gave the earth to the people. God gives the earth to the people. God gives the land for the people. There's any number of ways here you can translate this. Any questions on any translation you have there? On what you have? Yes, David?
Tense.
Pardon?
What would determine the tense of the
Context determines tense. Okay? And here we don't have much context, so that any tense is allowable. Any tense is allowable. Okay, number 17. Yatsa ha-kohen me ha-hekal lahar. Everyone? Yatsa ha-kohen me ha-hekal lahar. All right? And how would we translate this one, Mike?
The priest went out from the temple to the mountain.
Okay, the priest went out from the temple to the mountain. Okay, let's look at the vocabulary for chapter 8. It's on page 65. And let's read through the vocabulary. We'll begin at the upper right-hand corner, going across the top row. The first one is O. O means or. Dam, means blood. Zahav, means gold. Im, means if. Now notice this exact same pronunciation of the im that we had in the previous vocabulary, that is a preposition meaning with. So the spelling makes all the difference in the world. They sound the same, but they do not look the same. This is with, this is if. So im is with, im is if, but it depends on where it's at. You say, well, how did they keep it straight? Context. Context and the way it's used. The same way we keep similar sounding words straight when we use them without seeing them spelled. Okay, the next word is Yerushalayim. That's Jerusalem. Jerusalem. Cherev. Sword. Af. Means also. It has many other meanings as well. It can mean indeed. It can be an emphatic word. And it can mean just simply also. Shikutz. That means abomination. And notice the doubling dogish in the kof. And this type of word pronunciation in Hebrew, for some reason the Hebrews do not like that combination of the hirik and the kibbutz. And so almost every single word that has a hirik and a kibbutz is negative. Gilul is an idol. In fact, if you look at the back of your syllabus that we gave you earlier in the year, if you go back to the back of it where it gives you the, where is the toilet? Where is the toilet? When you're talking about the toilet, it's hashirutim. It's that same thing, E-U. E-U sound, shirutim. And there's many words in Hebrew that have that hirik and that U class, that usually a kibbutz, sometimes a shurik combination, and they're all negative in meanings. And so it begins with this one that's an abomination, shikutz. Kali. Notice there's a vocal schwa, kali. Vessel or utensil. When you look at Deuteronomy chapter 22, and it says that a woman is not to wear that which pertains to a man, the word that's used there is kali. She's not to wear the utensil or vessel that pertains to the man, and that is used then of armor with regard to man. It has nothing to do with pants. You hear that all the time in churches, that it has to do with women wearing pants rather than skirts or dresses. Nothing of the sort. Look at the context, look at the Hebrew. It has the idea of a woman should not be wearing the armor that a man wears. In other words, she should not be taking the role of the man. She's not the one to be sent to war in the Hebrew Old Testament concept. And so it's a totally different thing. It has nothing to do with clothing or pants at all. All right? In fact, in those days, men and women wore basically the same garment. So how in the world could you tell the difference? Okay? The fourth row, pen. Pen means lest. Lest. Okay? Panim. Means face or surface. Moav. Is the name Moab. Bana. He built. Ki'im. Ki'im is a compound conjunction, two parts of it there. It means but, if, or except. It can be a very strong contrast. The next word is kum. Means to arise or to stand. Notice again the use of the infinitive. It's a middle vowel verb. Ka'asher. Ka'asher means according as or according to. Chodesh means month or new moon. Asher. It's the relative pronoun who, whom, which, or that. Ki. Ki means that, because, for, when. Can mean even. It has a lot of different meanings. It can mean indeed. It can be emphatic. Ad. Until, as far as, up to. We had that in the vocabulary actually at the end of the previous chapter as well. Rove. Means great number or abundance. Keep in mind that the resh, beith combination in Hebrew, whether it's rove or rav or ravav, has to do with quantity, not quality. Quantity, not quality. That, when you're translating Psalm 19, you have that word occurring a lot. And it doesn't have to do with quality. It's not the idea of great transgression. It's the idea of an abundance of transgressions, many transgressions. All right, let's turn to chapter 9. Chapter 9, page 70. Pardon? Oh, did I miss one? I thought I was just talking about that, rove. Oh, excuse me. Oh, yes, that's added. I've got it written in here. I thought it was my own note. It's actually for the revision that you have. Okay, bo, excuse me. Bo means to come or to enter. To come or to enter. Okay, it's another middle vowel verb. To come or to enter. Thank you. Okay, page 70 at the end of chapter 9, because both chapters 8 and 9 vocabulary will be your quiz next Tuesday. Let's begin at the upper right. Zeh means this. Zot also means this. Notice that zeh is masculine, zot is feminine. The plural, these, is ele. Okay. Then we have aim, means mother. Notice it's the reverse of what we say. We say ma, mama, and here it's aim. It's the backwards. And the word for people is am. Mother is aim. Okay, ozen. Means ear. Sus means horse. Hakam is the adjective meaning wise. Ain means there is not or there are not. Yesh means there is or there are. Kol means all, every, everything, everyone. The particular translation is determined by context and the way that's associated with other words. Zerah. Seed, offspring, or descendants. Malak. This is the verb for Melech. Melech is the noun, king. Malak is he was king, or he ruled, or he reigned. Avraham is Abraham, and before his name was changed, it was Avram, which is Abram. Okay, any questions on vocabulary? Let's talk about the conjunction. We're getting in here now into chapter 8, which you are to have read for today, and you have an exercise to do for Thursday. So let's go over it. The conjunction is normally the wow, just the wow, and it is pointed with a simple schwa, just like we learned the inseparable prepositions beit, kaf, and lamed. The wow also is a simple schwa for the and. So if you have yam, sea, we want to say and sea, or and a sea, or and ocean, then it becomes weyam, weyam. Okay? If we have Adam, and we want to say and Adam, or and a man, it becomes we-adam, we-adam, and Adam, or and a man. Hekal, palace or temple, and a palace or and a temple, we-hekal. Everyone? We-hekal. If we have hatov, the good, if we want to say and the good, it's we-hatov. We-hatov. Okay? Everyone got that? Normally, the conjunction is just the wow attached inseparably to the word. It doesn't stand by itself. It's always attached to the word. And it's normally with a simple schwa as the vowel under it. And notice that since it's simple schwa, just like with Beith, Kaf, and Lamed, it doesn't matter whether you have a guttural or not after it. Okay? So now the change is going to come from other causes. If there's already a simple schwa there on the beginning of a word, like berit, covenant, or if there is a labial, like melech. Remember the labials? What are the labial letters? Beit, Mem, and Pei. Beit, Mem, and Pei. Then the wow is pointed as a shurik. So on mayim, instead of wamayim, it becomes umayim. Umayim, because of the labial. Okay? The labial mem. Pari, fruit, labial pei, so it becomes ufari, ufari. Notice that the dogish, the hardening dogish disappears from the pei. The hardening dogish disappears from the pei because we have an open syllable in front of it. Because the shurik is a primary vowel. And so it forms a syllable of its own. And so the dividing here, you have two syllables in this word. You have u and fari. Because a schwa cannot form a syllable. And here it's the vocal schwa. It opens the syllable. Okay? So the shurik does not stand in a closed syllable unless it's the only syllable or some other situation. But normally that's an open syllable. Okay? Bain, between, becomes uvein. Again, the same reason, the dogish disappears. Dogish disappears. So on your exercises, just put an X through the dogish. Put an X through the dogish. Shilishi, we have, this means third, and we have here a schwa. And remember, two schwas cannot stand together at the beginning of a word. So, in this case, instead of becoming wishli, a hirik, it becomes ushali, ushalishi, ushalishi. Okay? So that's the difference that we have between that and the inseparable prepositions. There, we change that first schwa to a hirik. Here, it goes to a shurik. Okay? That's where it changes. All right? Before a compound schwa, the wow is pointed with a corresponding short vowel. That's the same rule we had with the inseparable prepositions. Emet becomes we-emet. Elohim becomes we-Elohim, because remember, Elohim is the exception. Elohim is the exception. Editayim becomes we-editayim, corresponding short vowel. So anytime you see a composite schwa, just take the vowel part of that composite schwa and put it under the wow, except Elohim. Elohim is the exception. All right? Now that covers all of it. That covers it pretty quickly, and that covers just about everything that has to do with the conjunctions. Let's talk briefly about the relative pronoun on page 64. Esher is the relative pronoun. There's no declining of it. In other words, it doesn't take any endings, and therefore you do nothing with it. It stands by itself. It precedes in the relationship. It never comes after. When you have a relative clause beginning with which or who, asher is that which or who, and it's the beginning of the sentence, the relative clause. But that relative clause behaves as an adjective to define a noun. So we have here ha'ish asher al beit Yosef. Ha'ish is the noun that's going to be defined. Okay, the man. What man? The man who is over the house of Joseph. Asher, who, al over beit Yosef, the house of Joseph. Labat Pharaoh, four daughters Pharaoh, Pharaoh's daughter, the daughter of Pharaoh, literally. Asher, who, lakach Shlomo, whom Solomon married. Literally, whom Solomon took. Whom Solomon took. Notice the asher is the relative pronoun, and it defines the daughter of Pharaoh. Kal had divarim, all the words which he did, all the things which he did. Okay, by context. Asher is the relative pronoun, and here it's defining things, and the relative clause is asher asa, which he did. Im isha, with the woman, asher achavot. All right? And that achavot, that's a diamond there, is the Revia accent. Actually, it should have been removed from there because it's too confusing at this point when you haven't had a lot of exercises with accents. But the pathic under the hay is what you should have there. Okay? With the wife whom you love. Asher ahavot. Ahavta. So the asher is who, what, and which. All those examples used who or whom, except for one, which says which, the things which he did. All right? Asher is then a relative pronoun. Relative pronoun. In 2b, on rare occasions, asher is abbreviated as just a sheen. For example, in Ecclesiastes 2:9, Kol shehaya, everyone who was, lifnai birushalayim, who was in Jerusalem before me. Okay, who was is shehaya. So there, sheh is representing asher. There's a lot of debate over why in the world that's used, but that's there. Okay? All I want you to remember about the relative pronoun right now is the pronunciation of it, asher, and that it is translated as who, which, and what. Very quickly on your exercise on section 8, do you have anything at the bottom of page 31 that says extra credit of the exercise? Nothing there? Good. It's not supposed to be there. I have it in mind, have it crossed out, but I always have to make certain. Again, on translate, on D, I want you to attempt to make sense of them as normal English sentences. Okay? I want you to attempt to make sense of them as normal English sentences. Obviously, it's going to be very rugged and rough, but I want you to attempt. And then rejoice in the fact that you're actually translating entire lines of Hebrew. And notice we have not talked a lot about grammar at all. And that's because vocabulary alone is pulling you through these. But try to then smooth it out and make some sense of it in English. And you'll have an exciting time of it. And when we get into the grammar of it and you begin to see the details, you'll find out that the grammar wasn't all that necessary to begin with. It was mainly just common sense in putting things together in English.